flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from the election board meeting held on December 2nd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opportunity for the public to address the board on agenda items only? No? Okay. Motions. 22-4030, a motion to appoint a chair and a vice chair of the Board of Elections.
I'll make a motion to nominate Commissioner Domenick as the chair.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion to nominate Commissioner Notarianni as the vice chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 22-4031. It's a motion to follow Robert's Rules of Order and for conducting the Board of Elections meetings. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor? Aye. 22-4032. It's a motion to temporarily relocate the polling location of Scranton 7-1 from the Boys and Girls Club at 609 Ash Street in Scranton to the Scranton Cultural Center at 420 North Washington Avenue in Scranton. Beth, do you want to speak to that?
We have to move this polling place due to COVID restrictions. They don't want us in the building for this election.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve 22-4032?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
22-4033, a motion to temporarily relocate the polling location of Dunmore 1-1 from Our Lady of Peace residence located at 1510 University Drive in Dunmore to the Dunmore Community Center located at 1414 Monroe Avenue in Dunmore.
This would be the same situation. We're not allowed in the building due to COVID, so we're going to temporarily relocate it.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 22-4034, a motion to temporarily relocate the polling location of Old Forge 3 from the Old Forge Borough Senior Center upstairs at 310 South Main Street in Old Forge to the Eagle McClure Hose Company number 1-375 Milwaukee Avenue in Old Forge. Same reason?
This is because the borough building in Old Forge is still under construction, so we
Okay.
have to keep it there temporarily.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor? Aye. 22-40-35. 22-4035, sorry. Motion to temporarily relocate the polling location of Old Forge 6-1 from the Old Forge Borough Building, again located at 310 South Main Street in Old Forge, to the same location as previously stated, which is the Eagle McClure Hose Company number 1-375 Milwaukee Avenue in Old Forge. Same reason the Old Forge Borough Building is under construction?
That's correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
And 22-4036, it's a motion to temporarily relocate the polling location of Old Forge 6-2, again from the Old Forge Borough Building to the Eagle McClure Hose Company number 1, same reason, I'm assuming.
That is correct.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
22-4037, motion to relocate the polling location of Oliphant 3-2 from Liberty Hose Company located at 824 North Valley Avenue in Oliphant to the Oliphant Hose Company number 2 at 520 Burke Bypass in Oliphant.
We're moving this polling place permanently due to the deterioration of the.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're moving this polling place permanently due to the deterioration of the building. So we did do a polling place accessibility study at the new hose company that passed, and all of the households in that district will be notified today by letter that their polling place is being moved.
So it will be permanently at the
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve 40-37.
Motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 22-4038, motion to relocate the polling location of Scranton 6-1 from Riverside Housing at 200 Emmett Street in Scranton to Jackson Heights, located at 1001 Jackson Street in Scranton.
This is a temporary move at this time due to a fire at the housing project last week, and we cannot have it there.
Okay, so it doesn't say temporary, but this is temporary?
This is temporary until we find a permanent location, correct?
Okay, so all of them are temporary with the exception of...
With the exception of Oliphant, correct.
Do I have a motion to approve 22-4038?
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 22-4039, motion to assign poll workers to work the May 17th, 2022 primary election outside of their voting district.
We have many registered voters in the county that like to work the polls. However, they're people elected in their voting district. So you have to assign them to work outside of their polling place. The Board of Election has to approve that. And we probably have about 50 of those people that are willing to work if they live in Scranton, perhaps in Clark Summit, or so on and so forth.
This is basically standard procedure.
It is standard procedure. It happens
done it
every
before?
election. Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve 22-4039?
Motion. Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opportunity for the public to address the board. I think you might be a little too optimistic for us. You have to. You have an opportunity to address the board if you want to come up to the, if you have a question, you can come up to the podium.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, like,
But you have to come up to the podium or else they can't hear you.
State her name, address.
Can you just state for the record your name and address, ma'am?
Teresa Ripley, 210 Jennifer Street, Moscow, PA. I was just wondering, I thought you were going to have a conversation about voter integrity, and how are you going to ensure that the voting is going to be transparent and honest?
Okay. We'll address your concerns probably after anyone else has something to say in the public. The commissioners will discuss it, or council. Is there anybody else?
Okay, thank you.
Can you state your name and your address, please?
Yeah, my name's Tom Hill, 1019 Woodland Hills Drive, Dalton, Pennsylvania. I guess I'm concerned about the drop boxes in Lackawanna County, and just making sure that we're going to do something about that,
In terms
of not allowing them.
oh, you want them removed?
I think so. Yeah, I think it would be in the best interest for everybody.
Okay, we will address that when everybody's finished commenting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you state your name and address?
William Torbeck, Dunmore, Pennsylvania. Thank you for your time.
Hi.
I want to know how many drop boxes there will be in the county total.
Okay. We'll answer that after everybody just gets.
You
up.
don't have an answer right now?
We answer all the questions at the end.
Okay.
unless
How
somebody-
about
somebody have an
surveillance?
answer? Does
I'd like to have, know if there's going to be any surveillance. Is the county going to be responsible for surveilling these?
We'll discuss that at the end, after we're done taking the questions from the public.
You
We'll
can't
address it.
answer it now? Why can't you answer the?
We're going to answer all three questions, and anybody else, we do it at
Okay,
the
well,
end.
that was my, okay, thank you. All right.
I promise it'll be answered. Anyone else? Okay, who do we want to have answer these? Do you want Donnie to do it? Beth, do you want to discuss? So we have the first question was regarding voting integrity. The second individual wants to remove the drop boxes. And the third question was how many do we have and are they going to be monitored?
I guess my first question regarding the integrity is, could you be more elaborate as to what you're referring to? Are you referring to mail-in and absentee voting or voting at the polls?
You indicated what's going to be done to maintain voting integrity. Can you just be more specific as to what you mean?
Well, specifically, how are we ensured that the voting machines aren't on the wide open web, number one? Number two, how can we be assured that these drop boxes are veritable voters and they're not just ballot stuffing? There was no vetting process for that whatsoever, unfortunately. And number 3, there was one other thing. The drop boxes.
Take your time. That always happens when you're on the spot.
I know, I'm trying to think, oh yeah, as far as the vote watchers, they should be allowed to stay up to the end of the night.
They are.
Okay, well, I wasn't, I was kicked out at the end of the night, and
Did you have a poll watcher certificate?
yes,
with you?
I did, ma'am.
If
Yes,
that ever
ma'am.
happens, you should contact the office immediately, and we'll get in touch with
I
the...
did. And the Democratic poll watcher whom I sat with, he was also kicked out.
You contacted our office at that time?
I did, he did. Nobody responded to my call. We were both kicked out. He
Where was
was,
your location?
No one answered the
it
phone?
was in Southside. It was at a very large voting precinct in Southside, and an elderly black man resident in Southside and myself we were down there and kicked out.
Do you know what location she's referring to?
I mean, there's so many polling
was-
places in Southside, I'm not
I
sure.
have the paperwork at home. I could give it to you. The manager, the one that was in charge of that whole
The judge of
precinct.
election?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, usually what would happen in that case is if you contact the office, if there's not a constable on duty at the polling place, we'll dispatch a sheriff's deputy to allow you to come
There
in.
was a police officer, and the guy told the police officer to kick us both out. And I said, we have the paperwork here. It's a signed judge's order.
You should have been permitted to stay.
And he apologized to me and the older gentleman. And he just said, look, he goes, let's just, why don't you just move on? He said, and I just said, well, okay. And then I called here and said what happened. Nobody returned my calls. However, I will
Who did you
say-
speak to? Do you recall who you spoke with?
No.
Because we do answer the phone in the
Yeah.
office all night long, and we would have dispatched a sheriff's deputy had you spoken to someone in the office.
Yeah,
What's
I
the
wished
number
you-
that people would call?
570-963-6737.
And if when you go home, you can get the specific location as to where you were?
Yeah, I could bring the
that-
paperwork.
have her
back.
Because
call
what
this
we could do
number?
is we'll contact the judge of election and see if it's the same judge as last time to give them their instructions again regarding poll watchers.
But I have to say, I would like to add, ma'am, that I mostly all day spent up in North Pocono, going to all the precincts there, vote counting, watching, and I had no problem at all at any of the voting precincts in North Pocono.
So do you feel it was regarding the specific judge of
It was
election?
in Scranton. It was definitely in Scranton.
Do you have something to write this number down that we're giving you?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought she was going to call with the information as to where she was located.
Yeah, I'll bring
I'll
it.
give it to you. Just don't
Yeah,
leave.
okay.
I'll write down the number for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So referring to the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots, when a voter applies for a ballot by mail or by absentee, they have to put specific information down on the application, their driver's license number, the last four of the digits of their social security number, their birth date, and they have to sign the application. That then comes into our office and is processed by one of the voting registrars in our office, and it verifies that the signature on, now again, we're not handwriting experts, verifies the signature on the application. At that time, a label is created for each voter with a barcode on it that's attached to their voting record. The ballot is then mailed to the voter, and it comes back to our office. That barcoded label is scanned in our office, and that's how the person gets credit for voting. So the ballot isn't mailed to anyone but the voter who requested it, and it's attached to their voter ID number.
Her question,
It's for absentee and mail-in ballots.
I think her question was about how the machines themselves are affected by the internet, is that
None of our voting
Yeah,
equipment
can
is.
we verify
Yeah,
that the
none of our-
machines are not
None of our
off-
voting
off-
equipment is hooked up to the internet, none of it.
And is there any sort of a third-party company that could verify that? Kind of like an accounting audit where you would have a third
I
party?
mean, we could give you all the information from our voting company.
And as far as the mail-in ballots go, I have two registered Democrats in my family. I have 3 registered Republicans in my family. And the last election, the 3 registered Republicans received nothing in the mail, no mail-in ballots. My 2 registered Democrats, they received like 3. They just kept coming to our house. I'm like,
Okay, so you're not referring to ballots, you're referring to applications.
no, they're
They would not have been-
registered.
Yeah,
They're
I understand
registered
that, but what I'm
voters.
saying is, what happens is, if a voter is on a permanent status to receive a mail-in ballot annually, we mail out a letter to that voter with the application attached to it at the beginning of each calendar year, giving them the opportunity to apply for the ballot in that calendar year if they want to receive it that way and vote by mail. If they don't return it, they go to the polls as they normally do. What then happens is multiple political parties and candidates across the county and even across the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania take voter data lists and mail out applications to voters, whether they applied for it or not. So when people are saying they're receiving multiple ballots, they are not. It is not a ballot with the candidates on it for them to vote for. It is an application, and that's where the confusion lies, is that people are
These
thinking
were ballots, because I was looking at them and I was.
they didn't receive multiple ballots. The system is set up, they cannot produce a duplicate ballot for anybody because it's based on their voter ID number, and it does not happen.
First, you get an application,
That
which
is
I
correct.
actually filled out myself, even though I
That
work
is
in this
correct.
building. And you fill it out and you say that you want to vote by mail, and you send it in. And then you get the
I'm
bigger envelope,
hoping
the
next
the
election
ballot.
that whatever the Democrats receive, the Republicans will also receive.
The only thing is, in our office, if you are on a permanent status, we retract the list from our state database, and we mail out the applications with the letter annually to every voter that's on a permanent status. Not every registered voter, only the voters that are on a permanent status and have requested to receive that application annually. If any other applications are mailed out, you have to request it from our office. I cannot help if you receive applications from the X party, the Z party, the Y party, Mr. Joe, Jane Joe, that happens. And candidates, they'll even mail out multiple mailers. And I
But
think
it's
that's.
not from your office,
It's not
is
from
what-
our, no, it
it's
is
not
not.
from
And
you,
and
it's
believe
from
me when I tell you,
somebody else.
it's hard on
Okay.
us too, because it's a small office with an enormous amount of work. And people get very confused and they get very upset by it. And some people have received 3 and 4 applications in the mail because it's a statewide, with the
These aren't
governor's race.
applications, but thank you very much.
If there's any question, bring them in, we'll look at
Well,
them.
I usually say, is there a candidate's name on the ballot? Could you tell me what races are on the ballot? And they're not, it's usually the application, and that's where the confusion lies.
Yes. Can you state your name and address, please?
James May, 2137 Newton Ransom Boulevard, Ransom. Can I show you this? So I can give you a picture of somebody who received 14 ballots. The reason they got them was because they worked next door. Oh, just scroll through my pictures. Can you see them? You're scrolling the wrong way. Flip to the right or left. Flip to the right, yeah.
How do I know that's not the same envelope that was taken pictures?
Well, scroll in. It has the address and name on it. So, and I'll explain what happened on that. What happened was there was a woman who lived next door to, or worked next door to a nursing home. The mailman came in, dropped 14 ballots on her desk, and walked out. They were not hers. She took pictures of all of them and sent me the pictures because she said, look, I could have very, very easily filled every one of these out. So it was a mistake, and there wasn't any intentional wrongdoing on anybody's part, but that's my phone, and there's 14 ballots that are actual ballots that one woman sent to me because of human error. So I think
So they were
probably
supposed to go to people in the building? I think I'm,
yeah, she
you
worked
lost
right
me a
next
little.
door to an assisted living center, and they were all supposed to go over there. And again, whoever would have been working at the front desk there would have had access to all these ballots. They were all dropped at her, it was just a wrong address. He came in and just set all the mail there.
What do you do at it, like assisted living? Do you leave them with the person at the front?
They're
or do
mailed
you-
directly to them. So did they contact the post office to say they received these in error?
Well, she was honest enough to pick them up and walk them all next door and give them to the front person at the front desk there. But I think the issue is that, and the concern that's being brought up is that obviously, even if it's not intentional, I mean, I'm one person, and I have a picture of 14 ballots on my phone that were given to me from one person. So, obviously, human error occurs, and I think the more that we're opening up drop boxes and the more that we have mail-in ballot, the more that it opens us up to human error, and that's all this was, but that's what our concern is for many of us. Thank you.
Well,
I'll get it to you.
So there's nothing.
I guess my question is this.
All right, go ahead.
Primarily, assisted living buildings and nursing homes file for absentee ballots. Most of those individuals do not go out and go vote at the polls. Being around this for probably 35 years, absentee ballots primarily are part of what goes on in the nursing homes, and that's how they get delivered there is by the U.S. mail. So I don't think in this particular, and I could be wrong, Mr. May, that this particular post office worker who dropped them in the wrong spot was dropping off mail-in ballots for drop boxes. It was probably absentee ballots that were supposed to be mailed back to them. But once again, I don't know that either, and I'm sure that no one in this room knows that.
Can I say though, Mr. Mayor, if I understand it, so if I understand it correctly though, the mailman delivered 14 individual ballots to the wrong location. They weren't addressed to the same person, correct? There were 14.
Correct, right, yeah, right, yeah. So it wasn't one person getting 14 ballots.
I understand.
It was 14 different people who had requested a mail-in ballot that were all dropped at one person's
I understand.
office.
I understand.
And so, yeah,
So, and I say this to you, and I'm not being smart, I'm just saying it in the context of discussion. To me, that seems like more of a U.S. postal issue in that specific instance that you're talking about. Because whether we're talking about applications or whether we're talking about mail-in ballots or whether we're talking about drop box ballots, if the mailman ultimately doesn't deliver them where he or she is supposed to deliver them, and no one's infallible,
Right.
and that's simply a mistake. Now, fortunately, the person was honest about it.
Right.
But the reality is if the person wasn't honest, then they would have been committing arguably 14 different counts
Right.
of mail fraud
And-
or of election
yeah.
fraud.
And the only reason that I pulled it up on my phone, to be honest, when I came in here, I didn't even remember I still had that on my phone, but the reason I pulled it up was because it was said earlier that there's nobody who has received more than one ballot.
Well, let me-
and I
got
did
you.
know, so I had, and I agree, I had numerous people contact me saying, oh, I got 3 or 4 ballots. I said, no, you got applications for ballots. And even when this person contacted me, I said, no, you got applications.
I understand.
But somebody did, it was different addresses. There was a person, an elephant, who received 14 ballots at her desk. It was human error, no intentionality, but.
No, and I
that's
understand
the
your
truth.
point.
Yeah.
But I think, too, the point of Ms. Hopkins and what we're saying is that there should never, and I'm not aware of any instance in which an individual received more than one ballot addressed to them specifically because
Correct.
it's attached to their voter ID number. That's the point Ms.
Yeah.
Hopkins was making.
Right.
So if there's ever an instance in which anyone ever finds that's the case, like 911, pick up the phone and call the Bureau of Elections because that would be problematic.
Right.
But we've never been apprised that's ever been a problem. I know this woman here today was saying that she was aware of it, but absent that, that's the only instance in which we were apprised of that ever occurring. So I
Right.
just want to make that distinction. I understand your
Yeah,
point,
yeah,
but I think it's an important distinction.
It is an
'cause I don't
important
think-
distinction, yeah.
I don't think that's a product, Mr. May, of something that's systemically wrong in the Bureau of Elections or with the Election Bureau. I think probably that's more specific to the U.S. Postal Service, and I say this respectfully.
Yeah.
If anyone's dealt with the Postal Service in the last year or 2 years, it's like the Wizard of Oz.
Which is why we're here concerned with mail-in ballots.
Could I ask a question? Beth, I vaguely remember that there were times with regard to nursing homes and assisted living facilities that both parties would send a representative there to help the people voting their absentee ballots. And one, the R's were a check on the D's and the D's were a check. Do we still do that or not?
Not since I've been working in the office. That had ever happened while I was working in the
Do you
office.
recall it ever happening?
I do not.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So there were, voting integrity was voting machines, making sure the ballot stuffing, and we talked about the third issue and how many drop boxes there are, and there was a request to remove the drop boxes. So how many drop boxes? Do we know where they are, like offhand?
There's one at Carbondale City Hall at 1 North Main Street in Carbondale, Clark Summit Borough Building, 304 South State Street in Clark Summit, Dixon City Borough Building, 901 Enterprise Street, Dixon City, Music Borough Building, 715 Main Street in Music, Roaring Brook Township Municipal Building, 430 Blue Shutters Road, Roaring Brook Township, and right here in the Lackawanna County Government Center lobby located at 123 Wyoming Avenue in Scranton.
So that's 6, okay. And I guess, do we want to just discuss about somebody's
Well,
request
Commissioner, I
to
was just going
remove
to say, there was a
the
question
drop
about,
boxes? And-
there was a question about surveillance also, and they all are camered and they're recorded. They're not monitored live, but they're recorded, so we have a recording of what goes on with them.
And does anybody watch those surveillance videos contemporaneous or
No.
immediately thereafter?
No, if we get a complaint, we can go back and observe them, but we don't, nobody sits and monitors them
Because I
24/7.
do recall Sheriff McAndrew saying he didn't have the manpower
Correct.
to watch those videos. Correct. Thanks.
Well, I'd like to comment too. Back in December of 21, I stated that I had an issue with drop boxes, which I do. It was proven that they're not secure because we caught a man stuffing the ballot box. The district attorney did do some research on it, found the individual, and under his, whatever, he made the decision to not prosecute this individual. That's his call, not my call. As far as I'm concerned, he broke the law. So it's been proven that they're not. Right now, the pandemic numbers are very low. Our building's open, municipal buildings are open. There's really no need for a drop box. There's mailboxes on every street corner. If you don't want to go to the poll, put it in a mailbox. They're mail-in ballots. They're not drop box ballots. Mail-in. As far as our office here, Beth and her tiny crew I don't even know how they do what they do. They do a great job. I think they almost work 24 hours a day for however long. But, I have no concern when they're here. I have no concern. I know they do a great job. It's how they get in those boxes. And I know I get a lot of people will say, well, what's the difference if you throw it in a drop box or throw it in a mailbox? Well, the big difference is mail fraud. You get caught throwing it in a mailbox, and now you got a problem. That does not happen if you get caught throwing it in a drop box. I know this is a statewide issue. I don't like drop boxes. The other part is the other buildings that they're in. Our building is under surveillance by our sheriff. The municipal buildings that the other boxes are in are under the surveillance of that municipality. We do not have access to it unless they give it to us. I don't know how long they keep these films. Our sheriff, I think 90 days was the number I was told, but technically these should be kept for 2 years like the rest of the paperwork and everything else we keep for voting. So that's my issue, and right now in the public forum here, I've make a motion that we do remove the drop boxes. There's no reason for it. And I would hope that I would get a second. Not getting a second.
The funding for these drop boxes, where does that come from? Could you also, is it documented? And also the third party that does the counting of the voting, you did mention there's a company that handles that. Is that public knowledge also?
The general fund is what we utilize.
The funding comes from a general fund?
The
It's not-
general fund? Okay,
A grant. Is this documented? Is this all documented, public
said a
knowledge?
grant or a general fund, it was, he'd have
Okay,
to look.
I'd like
he'd have
that,
to go
before I
back
leave,
and look.
I'd like to get that. You can't get me, where the funding's coming from, the drop boxes, you cannot get that?
He
You're gonna
can,
be-
but he can't, before
But it's
you
not
leave,
available now?
he has to go to an office and find it, yeah.
Okay.
And then the
I'd like to get, thank you, I appreciate it.
The second thing, Beth, is he said, the company that you referred to,
We're talking about ES&S. It's our voting equipment.
EMS?
ES&S. It's the company that we bought our voting equipment from.
Okay, and you said that your answer about that company was in response to the fact
She
that
was
we're
asking
not
about that
on-
we're not online, and if she needed any information from the company, we'd be happy to give that to her.
Okay. Anybody? Okay. Just come up to the mic and please state your name and address, please.
It's Robin Medeiros, 2001 Terra Drive, Clark Summit.
Hi, Mr.
How are you? I'm not understanding why we wouldn't vote to remove these drop boxes. Can you give me a reason why you would be against it? If the post office is available to everyone, and it's the easiest way to get the ballots in. My husband works 14-hour days. He just did a mail-in ballot. We did it through the mail. If the drop boxes have cameras on them, but nobody monitors it, and nobody's aware that maybe somebody could be stuffing these boxes, then it's useless. It's like saying I have a gate for my dog, but the gate is open, and if nobody notices and he takes off, well, that's the way it is. So what would your reasoning be behind not wanting to have these removed, just to safeguard us one more time, one other way, so that everybody knows that their mail-in ballots are valid?
Who wants to take that? I mean, the pandemic isn't completely over, number one.
Well, I mean, there's
But a mailbox
multiple
doesn't-
reasons.
a
I mean,
mailbox
people
doesn't-
still wear masks and, some people are still in fear of, so, I mean, I don't,
But a mailbox is just as available as a drop box, especially if a drop
yeah.
box is indoors. A mailbox would make more sense.
right, it prevents post, I mean, can you take that and just speak to the issue? Somebody?
Yeah, but they
First
keep,
of all,
they keep,
they are the law of the land as we speak today, okay? Law of the land. So we can use them per the law. Number two, it's a great convenience to everyone. Instead of going to mailboxes and stuff like that, they can go to their local municipality and feel, I think they actually feel even more secure putting them in their mail drop boxes in a municipality next to a police station than they are putting them in a postal office. But that's just me.
And it also reduces, doesn't it reduce, like, if you go to a place in person, other people will be there, and that's what I was trying to get
Right.
at. Like, there are some people who are still,
We send our employees
concerned
out
about
with the
it.
sheriff to pick these up multiple times a week. And the U.S. Postal Service over the last couple of years is not getting the stuff back to us on time. We're sitting there waiting for the mail-in ballots to come in through the post office when we're getting these back quicker. That's all I have to say.
Well, then wouldn't it make sense?
additionally, they keep bringing up stuffing the ballot box. I mean, that connotates one person is voting multiple times over and over again. That doesn't happen. With the absentee ballots or the mail-in ballots, each voter gets one ballot. They have to sign the return ballot and deposit it into either the mail or a drop box in the county. Stuffing the ballot box implies that person, Mary Smith from 100 Main Street, is voting 10 times. Well, it doesn't happen. If we got 2 votes in from Mary Smith, there's going to be an investigation as to how she voted twice. okay? It's going to trigger it.
But the
'Cause
law
every
also
ballot-
states that
every
you
ballot
can
is
only
accounted for.
put one ballot in, so stuffing it with multiple ballots, whether they're yours or other people's, is against the law.
You are
why are
correct.
we not
However,
following the law?
however, what would stop somebody from taking 4 or 5 mail-in ballots, putting a stamp on them, and putting it in a mailbox? So should we outlaw mail balloting, all mail balloting? I mean, it's the same thing.
The fear of.
And also, the mailboxes are not monitored. There's no surveillance. How you would never know. At least the drop boxes have surveillance on them. So.
There's no current surveillance, again, on the drop boxes, okay?
Neither at the post office box.
Right, so they're equal.
So,
And
It's a federal offense.
it's not the law.
only if you catch them.
Drop boxes are not the law of the land. There's no statute. There's an interpretation by a bureaucrat in Harrisburg that
There's a Supreme
identified
Court. There's a Supreme Court decision that
It
says
specifically
they're legal.
states that they're permitted.
allowed.
That they're allowed. That's correct.
They're not.
Well, that's legal.
There's no statute authorizing the use of drop boxes. I think
Why do you need a statute if the Supreme
The
Court
Supreme
spoke on
Court
the
said it's
issue?
legal. It's legal. I mean, you can argue it to the Supreme Court, I guess, but there's a decision.
Okay.
PJ that says it's legal.
Anybody have any, go ahead,
And-
Frank.
No, I was just going to say, Commissioner, respectfully, I mean, I think there's points made on both sides. I know there was a motion made. I don't know that there was a second.
There was no second, so the motion failed.
I would suggest if we can, try to move on.
Okay. So anyone else? Are we ready to move on then? Members, other business? Commissioner Chermak?
Nope, I basically said what I needed to say.
Yeah, the standard operating procedures are, they're make a lot of sense in a perfect world, but at the end of the day, without vetting, nobody could prove anything. So at the end of the day, my question to the board is, are you going to have some sort of plan in place for a third-party independent audit? And that would be, in terms of the electronic machines, I don't want to go to the manufacturer of the machines for verification that it's not hooked up to the web. I would rather see somebody that specializes in forensic auditing, electronic auditing, to look at it and, go through it completely, that has expertise in that area. Because
Okay,
it's
Beth,
kind of
then-
like asking the fox to watch the chickens, to say,
Okay.
oh, we're very good, and oh, just,
Beth and-
this is
Beth and,
good, here's our documentation.
Beth and Don, would one of you like to speak on this, and then we
Yeah,
have to move
The
on?
ballots are audited twice. They're audited by the Bureau of Elections
Thank
here in
you.
Lackawanna County when we do the canvass. Additionally, they're audited by the state when they do a sample testing after the fact also. So they're audited twice. As for bringing in an independent third-party auditor, there's no provision in the election code that calls for
Governmental
that.
agencies.
And, there's no provision in the election code that calls for an independent audit. And additionally, who would pay for that? That's going to be expensive,
Okay.
Well, then, how about, since I'm getting shot down here on these drop boxes, I'll make a motion that we put a sheriff at every drop box while they're open. We'll request that all video be given to the county or to the sheriff and then stored for 2 years, like the rest of the,
So the sheriff is a row officer, so
he's our law official.
but we can't direct him to, we don't even know if he has the manpower to do so, and I don't believe that we have the authority to direct him how to use his personnel, so I won't,
they'll all be secured in the same location. Election material shouldn't be stored at Roaring Brook. It shouldn't be stored in Clark Summit. It's not stored there.
The video
Well,
is.
that's where the video is.
Again, that's fine, we'll collect the video, but the ballots aren't stored there.
But that, with all due respect, Commissioner, that's what Commissioner Chermak was asking, that the video all be remitted to the sheriff's office so that he can secure it for the appropriate amount of time. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I think we can ask the sheriff if we can do that.
you mean at the end, like whenever.
At the end.
At the end, yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
And he also requested that a sheriff be posted at each.
Well, I mean, it's the same commissioner that wants us to cut the budget dramatically, and then we're gonna have to.
I know, I'm the crazy one. I'm the crazy
I'm not getting
one.
into that at this point. Okay.
Okay, so we will discuss with the sheriff about getting the tapes, the videos returned to the sheriff's office at the end of the,
We have to actually reach out to the municipalities. They're the ones that have to store it, and then we can have the sheriffs retrieve it.
okay. All right. Commissioner Notarianni? I have nothing. I'll make look for a motion for adjournment
Second.
on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.